Alright, let's see if we are back live and back working. Ah, goodness. Give me 1 second. Let me log this back in here. See if we can get these difficulties worked out. Last trade, I ended up closing through Rhythmic Trader and getting that at a gain of 60. We'll review that in just a second once I get this signed back in. One second, coming right back. All right. And filled that at 5:30. I think that was it. Pretty terrible history. Let's see. There we go. Ended up closing that at, and I just closed it to close it. We filled it at 50.30.75. That's not the right one. Where is it? I'm not even sure where it closed. Let's see. Okay, that's the trade. That was the fill price. Where's the close price? Alright. I'll just put that on there. Maybe that'll show us. Yes. I have no idea how to even look at that right now. Let me see. Why can I not find it in a way that it makes sense? That might be the one. Oh my goodness. Why can I not find it? $51.41.50. So that's where it got closed right there. So that actually worked out. We did have the target at 43 it would have reached, but I closed it out just for the difficulties. So now let's see if we can restart and get this thing going again and recover the last little bit of the P&L that we're missing for the day. So we've got the breakout. Now we're going to see if it's going to retest and go or if it's going to fail and come down and continue on. Let's set up our strategy here. Make sure we're getting our orders. We are certainly going short.
Filled.
I'll bring that down. We'll go for the original target that we had in mind to begin with. Strong break to the downside. If it's gonna go, it's gonna go. So I'm gonna tighten that up. About $10 risk. Let's see if we get the trade. I'm gonna have to look into Rhythmic Trader on how to use that and find my way around in there, because I have not really looked at that at all. It's just the background running through a plugin in NinjaTrader, so I just kind of trust NinjaTrader to handle all that. But I'm gonna clearly have to learn a few things about it. Still getting that momentum downward. I'm gonna bring that up to the break level. It does strongly look like it's going to continue downward. That was a fake out long. I'll take a look at that past little guesstimation. So we had our average, basically the length of the triangle. Where did we pull that at? I think I had the target up there, so that was a little high. It didn't quite work out to be the case in that instance. Naturally, it would be a break from this area, but even still, it didn't quite reach. So that theory didn't do us very good. Now, let's measure it out and see how it could have worked. So, even still, if we would have tried to use any relevant point like that, we would have ended up short. Not sure if that's entirely valid. I haven't seen too many instances where I've been able to take an opportunity like that, so haven't used it too often. It may not be worth using if it's not that reliable. I'm after the highly reliable, the highly reliable ideas. Let's see if we can measure it in this case, because we had something like this. And then a break that came back to the high. Not sure how relevant that would be to go. So much discrepancy in interpretation when it comes to patterns. It's hard to really get a reliability factor for patterns. And then you can also relate it to different time scales. So this will be a double top over the course of an hourly chart, or even a 30-minute chart. So top 1, top 2, and that would actually be the triple top. Bring the risk back down because it looks like it's starting to go. And as soon as I do that, of course, it tries to jump back. I'm going to leave it there, though. It's only $5. And if we break high out of this, we're going to be definitely going long anyway. And yes,
Order filled. Order filled.
long theory is more likely. Bring that to the top. Cover the breakout to eliminate some risk. Still kind of in line with some heavy buys off of this level here. Seems to be playing out quite a bit. So I would think heavy buys in this little area here. And just slightly below that strong break candle, not directly on it. About 2 pips below it, 2 points below it, or 2 ticks rather, but it does look like it take it. And we're going to continue down and see and watch what happens off this level here. If we clear this high, then it should definitely be a strong indication that we would go long from this instance. Keeping the losses very small, trying to hit $20 to $30 at least for a target. So at the current rate, we can lose about 6 times for what we're gaining. I'm going to wait for a little bit more certainty. Showing down, but the momentum has severely slowed down. Things are pretty well lined up for that long theory. Cover the low wick. Trying to go back to previous highs. Showing as a short-term double bottom. Bottom, top, bottom, top. Let's see if we continue up to the target. It's kind of what I'm expecting out of this. And give the buyers time to get things turned around. And looks like a range type of day so far. So we have our established areas. It's not trying to force out one way or another from this. Does look like the buyers are keeping control of the range. I have to break this high to see some momentum come in. That out of the way. And slow to push back up. Usually after about 9:30 things tend to slow down slightly. Which is 11:30 New York time. So we're still doing good. Stream is a little slow. I have to use a longer delay. Still showing the buyers coming in. Hang on just a little longer. Got the level here that we should be mindful of. So no reason to stress just yet. Whew. Hope it ain't going to sleep on us. Typically I'm out of the market right before it moves, so we're going to be in during the time it's commonly moving now, or what I've been seeing lately. Seems like we've been chopping around a lot in the beginning, and then we make our move today. That's how it's kind of played out the last couple of days. Mark, sometimes I start to have issues. I didn't have issues on the first day of it. I was also using a delay. Oh my god. See if we can stay connected. I think that stream delay is going to have a bit to do with it. Not sure if it's going to keep acting out or not. More than likely it will. If it does actually drop out again, I'll just record the screen and upload the video. That way everything gets tracked. Takes a bit longer to do it that way, but that's what's required. That's what we'll work with today. May have to try my other spot for internet. Because this one keeps showing up slow. Kind of hit or miss with this internet. Some days it's great, some days it's slow. Today is not the day for the internet. And still going in the same trade. Been waiting now for about 22 minutes. So a little bit of patience in this situation. Now if we do see it slowly but gradually creep up to this little area here and not really break through, that could be a sign that it's going short, at least back to probably this area, or I would more or less look for the bottom of consolidation. But we'll see if we break out of the level here. Starting to push upwards, gain a little bit more traction to the upside. So I would expect it to at least get to this top level again. And we could actually see it push through that level, in which case I'll look for a retest long out of that level again, or some other indication to go long. Make this an even trade at least. I do believe we're going to break right through this level. Everything's still fairly in alignment with the theory from before, with many buyers down in this level. And I'll protect that minimum target. So we have at least a standard expectation of what we're looking for, about $25. We'll see if it'll continue. Probably not going to get much more than that.
Order filled.
So we'll leave it and see what else we're going to do. Feeling that might be the start. We're coming back down. If it does break out, I'll re-enter long. Cover the bottom. This little area right here, I'll move the stop to this area if it breaks above the high here.
Order
There it
filled.
goes. I could have just left the other order on in that case. Trailing stops can get a bit tricky sometimes because you never know which candle to cover or which level to cover. So there's probably another advantage to using targets instead of trying to pick where it's turning. Just take the gain and look for another trade. And probably did not get that one right, but we will wait and see just a moment.
Stop filled.
Yep, that was it.
Order
We're going to
filled.
break down below the level. Try to come back to this area down here. Still the same principle applies. It's easier to go backwards than it is to go forward. So just making gains is pretty important. This is another relativity idea supporting for the targets. And keeping those at set levels, I may even consider shorter targets. I'm going to look at a few other possibilities with it. Make a few more adaptations over the weekend. I'm able to pull up some replay data, so I'll be able to actually practice and try a few different things, and I'll be able to run the speed up a little bit to see how that actually goes. You know, things are getting kind of sluggish. Going into the lunch hours in New York. I'm starting to get that break down below the level pretty hard. Probably going to match the intensity of this candle here at that point. Reduce the risk. Now that we're getting the break. If it does decide to snap back, it's not a major loss. That's supposed to be a stop limit. Background noise. Some work going on here. Stream. Okay. Good. A bit of a trend line. Should see a final break. Could also reverse and go long. A bit of support, a little bit of a level. Right in this little zone. Watch out for that. Oh no, I should be going down here in a second, hopefully. Directions. Nice weather out today. Change of seasons is always nice. Will you guys stop bugging me? Jeez. I get like 5 messages a day from you guys. Leave me alone. See if this is going to be more relevant than this. This is our typical reversal pattern that some would say. You have a strong push up, you show support, it breaks support, retests as resistance, and then finally has the break and roll down. So to kind of show that, we come up, we made a little bit of a resistance, a little bit of a support, and then we break well below that, come back up and show resistance, and then usually there's a large breakdown. So it'll make a short-term support, break it, and resist after actually coming up first. And then we have the rollover and breakdown. So that's a typical price action pattern that a lot of people will use, and kind of what I was anticipating in that situation there. Looks like we might be getting more relevance out of this little pattern here versus the overall portion here. I'll move the stop down, reduce the risk. See if we get an opportunity to reach our target. And target should be reached, assuming we get the follow through. Starting to get that same pattern repeating now on a larger scale. There's our support, strong break below, going to become resistance. So we could see a little bit of a break and then retest up in here. And this little area zone here crossed, and then final breakdown after that. Which could very well take it back down to this lower level. Not sure that's going to be relative anymore. I can go ahead and remove that and clean things up a little bit. That's kind of relative to the larger zone. That's already been used. Up to about the middle of that level. And then if it continues to take out the rest of the wicks, then it should continue. hopefully the stream health stays up good enough. I also need to try a different spot on Monday. A place where the internet might be a little bit better. Go sit. We have good weather and go sit there and use their internet. Could also be the stream software as well. Kind of test both ideas through the next weeks. This low breaks, I'll adjust the stop to where the trade is no risk. Currently about $5 on the trade or so. $8 on the trade. Yeah, about roughly $8 on the trade. This was a fake out, and it starts to break down even more. I could definitely see it coming down around the 51. Let's do a little investigation. Okay, so that's about 9-10 ticks or so. And if we're going for 3 points, it's going to be 12 ticks. So that could be one. That could be one. Kind of doing a little forward thinking. Just a second. I'll put one more tool on here. do some thinking and some working. Let's see what we have. Okay, so if we're looking at about 2 points, oh, that's not good. I have to look at this on TradingView. Kind of have a theory that I need to set this at 3 points for the profit, maybe 1.5 points for the stop. So that would make it 15 for a target. Could even go 4. See how 4 would work. I think the 3 was better. So that would be 1 trade. That would have been another trade. If we go here, we would have lost. Try there, we would have lost. I think we need like a 1.5 to 3 or 1.5 to 2. I'm gonna look at some shorter targets though as potential. It'll take more trades, but it will be in and out of the market faster, and if we have a positive expectancy out of the trading overall, then I think that might be beneficial long run. So a few different things to consider over the weekend, and I'll be looking at that until Monday morning. And then next week we'll come back and have a look at basically an overall refinement and overhaul of how things are going to go. I'm thinking this is about to go long.
Order
Close
filled.
that out.
Order filled.
And I'm going to cover just a short amount here, go back to the high. Because now we have this turned back to support again in this little area. And of course we could just be sticking around this area for a little while. No real positive result one way or the other. In which case the very short targets would come in handy for situations like this. And if you look at the overall market perspective from top to bottom, even putting it on a higher time frame, a lot of times you see it only makes 2 or maybe 3 major moves a day. So the odds of actually catching that properly and then hanging on to it and then calling the end of it properly are fairly low. You'd have to accomplish all 3 things together every time consistently in order to get the big moves. The trailing stop can help in a way, but it's extremely tricky in how basically it works out. You know, it's hard to say, okay, this is the low or that's the low. Do I cover this candle? Do I cover that candle? So I'm kind of wondering if I'm needing to take this from a perspective of let's risk a set amount such as $5 or $8 just on the try itself. Use limit orders for entries and use breakouts on the up and downs of the candles. So in this case, it would enter long right there at that point where the price is, or maybe even 1 point above. And then the stop would wind up basically one line below the entry. So if we were to take that as a current theory example now, our entry would be here. Basically, but in that candle. And then it would basically do one line for the risk. And then for the gain, we would be looking for something like that. So it's extremely small. It'd be like $12 or so in the gain. It's not even that. That would be $7.50. That would be 2 points. Of actual profit, so that would make $10 on one contract. Or we would get tapped out if it breaks below the bottom small box. And that would be knocked out of that trade. So that would be a $5 loss at that point. Almost curious if it's going to continue downward short, but we do have the double bottom and then upward push overall in the price. That's probably going to be a lot more relevant than this, even though this area is much larger. It's kind of my theory, what we're dealing with, although there is a heavy volatility right here. So that could support this as being more worthwhile than this. Size doesn't always matter in the case of consolidation zones. It's kind of the point I'm driving at. Probably even go to there, reduce the risk a little bit. clears that high, I'll be a bit more comfortable, because we'll have to clear this level, and then that should actually become a larger scale support. I'm kind of fighting back and forth across this zone here, so mostly what it's an expectation of is just to stall out temporarily and then go. I have a bit of a build up throughout the day still with the earlier theory. Going long, heavy buy activity at the lower levels. And we still have that uptrend sort of bias lining up out of the long scale. And when we finally get our break, a little more patience. I'm sitting in this trade for quite some time. Got in on this candle here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 minutes so far. slowly pushing through the level. So I'm expecting probably somewhere in a few next 5 to 10 minutes to finally break free and break above. And there's a little bit of a break at this level. A bit more time, because still overall we're looking at as an uptrend. Rather shallow. And this is where we can lead into issues of interpretation on pattern. Then you could say this is a double top. You could even say this, argue that this is going to be resistance, which is kind of a likely. This would have been a fake breakout, which should have pushed it lower. It did make a strong move, but now we're kind of pushed back pretty hard. And now we've made back even more of that push back again for a second time. The only thing that would really confirm that this should be short is if we have a breakdown here and then it just continues lower past these wicks. And I think there's a lot, still think there's a lot of buy support off this area here. So I think we're probably going to be good for a long side. But the better entries were down here if you're still holding. And it's starting to drastically slow down on the volume though, so it may just be time to wrap it up and head into some more practice, do some more refinement, take in some more of the ideas learned from today and worked out from today. Probably open Monday with a video this Sunday, actually, Sunday evening, probably explaining some of the process going forward, the thinking, and how I'm going to be approaching the trades. This week is mostly just about refinement, figuring things out, and trying to figure out some type of pattern or some type of different accommodations of how things go. And then I'm going to try to take and apply what I see to make the optimizations to actually make this a very strong strategy, hitting around the 60 to 70% range. The targets are probably going to be fairly short. This is what it's looking like overall. If I go and just really think things through, trying to get 2 or 3 lines versus trying to get several is going to be much more likely in terms of being able to actually get something going. I have to kind of take a look at multiple different areas and setups like this where things are just very choppy. Try to see if major levels have anything to do with actual factors involved. Try to see if there's any type of candle indications or 2 or 3 candle indications to try to figure out, like example here, just between these 2 candles where it clearly broke above and cleared all this out. Could also say it cleared all of this out, but then you have that situation here. So I have to try to figure out different ways to make basically some type of tight entry rules if we're going to keep a tight stop loss, because I want to keep about a 1.5 to maybe even 2 point stop loss. So between $7.50 to $10 for the stop, and I'll probably be looking at around $20 for the target, but it could be shorter. It could actually wind up being 12 to 15. So it may wind up somewhere around a 1-to-1. But again, I'll just take a few different notes, because in this example, even though the stop would line up if we entered at the top of this one, if the stop lined up inside the candle, it still wouldn't really matter, although it probably would have came back to the entry or below, but they'd get 2 points overall at the top, but not quite. So I'll just have to look at little variances like that to really see what's happening and how things are reacting, how it may work out. Because if I get too tight or the entry is not quite lined up correctly, it could just result in ultimately seeing a lot of losses. And that's going to be detrimental long term. So quite a few different things to look at over the weekend, and then I'll come back Sunday with a video. And probably Monday I will reset the account back to 50,000, and we'll do a fresh week, fresh start with something a little more concrete as far as how we're going to approach taking entries, setting up the targets, and determining the stop loss. The whole idea is to manage the risk and minimize the risk, but of course we want to get it right. So that's going to be one of the primary focuses of where can I get some type of good indication or signal of which way we're possibly going. We could even go ahead and possibly try to play with this a little bit on the stream. So let's go ahead and say I want 2. We have 4 points inside each line, so we'll say 2 for that, and then I will go for 12 on the profit, which will be 3 points. Could even go 8 for 2 points. Do it as a 1-to-1. Remove the levels. Sort of clean things up a little bit. Okay. So now we can see that it looks like overall we still have that upwards motion, but all the activity is above here. Now we're starting to get activity below. It could be a sign of a breakdown. if I do see a black candle, I'll put a limit below that black candle, and if it opens and continues lower, it'll grab the order. Same in reverse. Right now we've got some strong upward push, so I probably should not have closed the trade out overall, but we'll give this idea a test. We're kind of out of room of what we have to work with overall. So play it out, reset the account Monday. Even if I stop right now, it wouldn't make a difference if I'm going to reset it. I'm just going to run it out and see where it goes. More things to look at and more data to put into the assessment over the weekend. More data is always better. More things to look at. Especially if I can take some trades, I can observe what's happening during the trade from that third person point of view. And that's kind of how I'm going to approach all the other recordings. I've also got several other sessions that I've recorded I'll be able to play through and look at. Kind of like a football player or basketball player would go back and look at game tape and kind of see how they did and see how they performed, seeing, how their actions interacted with the overall scope of what was happening in the larger picture of things. Then you can go back and apply and see how maybe new observations could have affected what you were thinking at that point in time when you took that trade. So it's kind of good. I actually think recording your trading is actually one of the best ways to journal, because you can actually speak out loud what you're thinking, kind of like what I'm doing in these live sessions here as we're getting things developed. And then I can go back, I can listen to what I was thinking, but then I can apply what I've learned so far out of the process, apply the new thinking, and figure out how I could actually change my thinking during the process of the trade. So sort of a psychology benefit down the road once you go back and review. But that's part of step 2, and that's actually going back and reviewing the videos. So one other thing you could even do, if you don't want to record an entire session, if you don't take very many trades during the session, you could actually just trim out all of the spaces where there are no trades taken, unless you have some other thinking or ideas, and basically condense it down to where you're only having a recording of those 2 or 3 trades, so you may only have 30 minutes of video instead of a whole 6-hour session. So Shotcut is one good application to actually do that. I think we're getting a strong buy
Order
up.
filled.
We'll see if we can get this one. But Shotcut is a real lightweight application, pretty easy to use. There's a lot of tutorials on YouTube as well on how to use it. I could even do a video. Actually, that's actually a pretty good idea, so I might do something like that over the weekend as well. Go through and do kind of like a recap sort of situation. Well, trading week recap, and show how video can actually be used for a pretty effective journal, because that is going to be the building blocks for everything moving forward next week. Always look for improvements. If you're always improving, you're eventually going to get there. Once you give up and stop, that's when you never get there. So you just have to keep working for progress, working for improvement. And then once you reach enough progress and enough improvement has happened, that's when consistency really kicks in. So first we got to get the consistency in action and determine exactly how we want to do everything that we want to do during the market. And then this way we can practice that, so we can even eliminate days like yesterday where things just went completely awful, completely south. But you also need to learn that sometimes it will still happen no matter how hard you try. So even the most structured trading plans and ideas can always go south and just make for a bad day. So we're human. That's the whole point. We can't be machines. And I know a lot of argument is made for algorithm type trading, but show me a bot that's consistent over the long term that actually consistently makes money on a real account, not a demo account. So that's kind of the whole thing too. A lot of times people will put these bots on accounts, but they're on demo accounts that don't account for trading costs. So overall, yeah, they work, but they don't account for the actual trading fees involved. They're taking thousands of trades, and yeah, they might have made 1,000% return, but how much commission did they really pay? So that's something you kind of have to watch out for if you do go bot shopping. As far as my advice on algorithm trading, the computer is not looking at the market. It's just simply looking at different points and how they relate to each other to make a decision. It's not really observing what's happening in the market and putting the overall picture together like we do when we're actually looking at it. So it's not going to isolate this little point here and this little point here or this here. It's going to determine a couple of different variables based out of past history, and then once we get a new candle, something that might be very important gets left out of the picture. So for example, if you were using 14 or even 20 or something like that, every new bar that goes forward, it starts to eliminate that data from the back. So that's where a lot of times algorithm trading can come up short. Basically, it's not looking at the market. It's not able to really make decisions based on the actual market itself. It's just making assumptions based on a few different numbers. And there are thousands of different numbers involved. And the human brain has the ability to actually isolate these different points. I can actually bring this up. So let's modify this a little bit. I'll take it to 1.5. So right now we're working with 6 and 8. And actually that would be 6 and 6 or 8 and 6 because we have about 2 points for our commission. About a point or a tick and a half for the commission, so I can't really get a half a tick. So even just being 1 tick in profit would be a loss of about 42 cents, I think. Or no, it's $1.42, so it would be a loss of about 17 cents at just 1 point in profit. Or 1 tick in profit, sorry. So if we're using short targets like this, we really don't even have to look very far ahead. We only need to look a few candles ahead. It's the shorter the distance you have to look ahead, the much easier it is to kind of get a figuring of which way it's going. It does look like we may have
Order filled. Order filled.
That instance where we're having a candle with a massive push down. So we'll see if we can take that. I'm going for 2 points profit, 1.5 for the loss. And that actually lines up on the top of this level here, but I'm not going to adjust any targets. We're just looking for something that is attainable overall without an extended wait period. Also need to work with using limits. Sometimes it's a little difficult to work with the limit orders, the way things move. because had I put a limit there, there's 2 points. But now we'll need to get a little bit further to get our profit from our entry. Thinking 1's going to be a little bit too close. In regards to a stop. Although the very top of this candle would be 1 point. And this is going to keep everything very small, so once it becomes consistent, then we just control it with the contracts. Just increase the number of contracts. When you're always working with new strategies, it's always best, even on a live account, to trade the smallest possible, because you don't want to lose your entire account based on something that you haven't tested or understood or worked with at all. You want to have some type of experience of working with it first. So I'm going to put most of my weekend actually into running some history data and just observing and looking at different price actions, different candle setups, different candle patterns, all these various things that I've kind of observed today and over the last week or so. I'll be looking at that footage as well from the start of this account to watch it from the first trade all the way down. I did miss 1 day of recording. I just didn't record 1 day, but it wasn't a winning day. It was a bad day, a poor day, but it would have been helpful to look at. So that's just 1 missed day of journaling. But I do have, I think, 6 or 7 different full days of trading to observe.
Stop filled.
Let's say if it goes higher.
Order submitted.
Then we'll try it with that. Try it with 1 point. Oy. Pretty good little breakdown. Go 1 tick above. Which actually, I'll go 1 tick above the black candle. Try to get a touch closer.
Order filled.
So now we'll see an example where that stop is inside the candle. Should be a little less patience for these trades. Shorter targets, less time in the market. There we go. I set this to a new playlist. And we'll put these live streams on it. Just a few moments. And now it's breaking down again. Could just be a tight spot to wait for a clear breakout. This was potentially a great entry to take off the top. So we're looking at probably not quite two full points out of that though. Still fighting around. So far, starting to move in the right direction. And getting these videos posted onto the playlist. So that'll be good to go. If you're interested in looking at an overall process of development and trying to look at ways to troubleshoot and improve the trading, it'd be good to watch that start to finish to kind of see and get an idea of how I approach things, and maybe give you some ideas of how you could also start deducing ways to improve your own style and get trading to actually match the way that you want to trade. Me personally, I like to be in and out of the market. I like to be right, and I don't like to try to wait through a lot of hairy situations. So the shorter time frames, shorter trades, and faster executions tend to suit me a lot better. Fast trading isn't for everyone. A lot of people tend to have much better success in the longer term. Some of that is psychologically based, and some of that is just understanding based. It may be a lot easier for you to understand the market paired up with fundamentals and news, in which case it may be better to try to trade a long term. I don't really put a lot of faith or effort into news. A lot of it's politics, and it's hard to discern which is real and which is fake these days. So I just kind of stick to pulling all of the information I need directly from the chart, because the chart is going to ultimately tell you what's happening, what's going on, and of course what's happened. So one thing about it though is what's happened already it's over and done with. So there's no sense in trying to give it much credit. And will we finally grab the target on this one? Is within reach, easy to reach.
Target
there it
filled.
goes. Then we'll wait for this candle to finish. We may end up taking another long position. Do that with a limit order though.
Order
Get that
submitted.
in, and once the candle finishes, can't do it that way. Put it above that candle. If it does retreat back up, stop will be about right there. Move it up one tick.
Order filled.
Right, and stop is right at the bottom of the candle. See if we can get 2 more points. Gain 2, lose 1. Really 1.1 or 1 1/4. Gain 1 3/4, lose 1 1/4 when you account for the cost of trading. So the gains and losses are quite small. But the thing about it is, once you convert to points and ticks for everything cost-wise, it works out to where it's always going to be that distance for your cost and commission. So even if we had 128 contracts on here, it would not matter. Still, 2 ticks would cover our commission plus some. That would work the same way relative to what we have. I'm thinking we might be going down a little bit now.
Order submitted.
Set it a go 1 tick below that one. 1 tick below the doji and 1 tick above.
Order submitted.
So we'll basically straddle that doji.
Order filled.
Breaking top side again. And we have an hour, new hour starting. So I could see a little bit of violence in the candles here.
Target
There
filled.
we go. Got that one.
Order canceled.
And that's a strong push upwards. All right, starting to get a few more wins now.
Order filled.
Try it to the downside now. A little bit lower than I wanted to be. I wanted to be at the one tick below that doji. This would be considered sort of a breakdown like this one was back here and this one here. So I'm not sure if it's going to continue lower or not, but we'll see if we can at least reach the 2 points.
Stop filled.
And did not get that one. Looks like we're trying to push up a bit higher. Give it a moment. If that's going to push higher, then it would probably do it from here.
Order submitted.
Go one tick above. And one
Order
tick
submitted.
below. Try that approach again. About an hour left, an hour and a half of my day or so. I got to stop trading at 3:10 Central Time, Chicago Mercantile Exchange time. It's just when the cutoff for the futures for this platform is going to happen. Let the inside bars play out. Looks like we're probably going to have a break to the top side again. Squeeze in just a little bit.
Order filled. Stop filled.
Starting to see a severe slowdown right here. We have the stable trend upwards, but we have a fairly solid level here starting to form. Go one tick below that candle. It's currently forming.
Order filled.
I need just a little bit more distance on the stop. Four might be a little too snug. Not much opportunity. We got another truck pulling up. Let me mute this out so we don't get annoyed.
Stop filled.
Alright, sound back on. Not having much luck. Kind of sitting in one place here.
Order submitted.
Well, one tick above the highs. If it's going to break, it will more than likely go. And do the same below.
Order submitted.
One pip below the most recent low. Or one tick. Bit of a range near the top. Could expect if it does start downward, it'll be a strong downward trend the rest of the day. Pretty far away from our trend line. Heads that up from the higher time frame.
Order filled.
And going long.
Stop filled.
Nope, not having a lot of luck with that strategy. I'll give it a few more goes. Set it right on the bottom.
Order filled.
Try to gain a little more room for the stop. Sure if this will be any benefit or not. 5, 8, and 9 are pretty common.
Stop filled.
Going backwards a lot slower now. Still thinking short. This is what I'm more familiar with. The Russell moves right away kind of in the beginning of the day. That one made similar moves, but it was rather choppy about it. There's quite a bit of chop in the S&P quite regularly. When I started futures, I was doing it on the Russell. Similar setup. $5 per point. This one has 10 ticks per point though. So we set this to see what we should use. Okay, so we're going to use a 1020. So that'll be 2 points. 2 lines if we win, 1 line if we lose. Gives a bit more range. Alright, now for entry. Kind of difficult to really hammer down a good entry roll. Maybe something I'd have to look at. Very slow volume though. May just be the end of the day. It is Friday. Usually by about lunchtime things slow up pretty good, so not sure if it's going to be worthwhile to continue trying to trade on live. It may just be time to wrap things up. Go to practicing on some historical data. Best times to trade are usually the first couple of hours and sometimes the last couple of hours of the day, but being as it's Friday and end of the week, things do tend to slow down as a regular basis. Unlike Forex that typically falls on Friday at a pretty steep rate, stocks and futures don't tend to exhibit that same pattern. So we could just dilly around in this area here to close out the day, or we could ultimately come back towards the middle, I would think. It does look like it was a strong push up, then right back down, but that was about an hour before we began the day. So a little pre-market range, and we just kind of filled that range in. May end up coming back about halfway, though, would be my expectation. We've had a strong, steady run up, and now that momentum is starting to slow out, so we could see a slight drop. I'll take a look at a few different ideas. Not sure if the moving average is going to help or anything. I don't put a whole lot of merit to indicators. Price action is ultimately going to give you everything you need to know, but still it's kind of hard to know what's going to happen over here. Is it going to go up here, stay here, or come down here? And that's what makes it fun. So I may have to try to work out different candle formations, different instances, like for example, look at long, candles with long pin bars or full bodies. There's a pin bar example, so taking an entry there, 1, 2, a 1 pip stop would have been great there. We're going upwards, so it probably would not have been a great idea to take any of these shorts, but once we get a green bar, taking the green bar afterwards, 1, 2, kind of gives us a good idea there. So right now we're going kind of flat. If we start to get a direction short, then we would start looking for something like that. If we get a full body candle out, we could take above that candle. We'll let this candle finish and see if it ends up being a full body. If it does, we'll take the top of the candle. We do have that pin bar, which kind of indicates a possibility of reversal. The whole way up, we were mostly making wicks on the bottom of the candles. There, it's a bit choppy. This is what I'm usually trying to catch in most days, and I'm not seeing that happen on the mini S&P 500. So it does look like we're breaking a little bit up. Place a buy stop on the market. Probably could have taken it long there for the pin bar example. Not good trading, but it's all great data. That's the whole purpose of this first week. Take note of things that work, take note of things that do not work, and then moving forward, do less of the things that do not work and more of the things that do work. Just no real activity right now. Starting to think this is going to be a top, though. Look at a few more things. So that's where I was typically seeing the 62 for the gains as well. 65, 62 in that area. So that's sort of what I was basing out of in the beginning. Maybe move to the Russell and kind of stay in line with the Russell. I tend to know that one a little, tend to work with that one a little bit easier. The S&P is starting to give me a little bit of a runaround. Okay, so if we get a strong breakdown, Might be a consideration to look short. We'll get a strong break. We'll wait to see if it'll retrace and then take the second push out if it does decide to go short. But this being a flat zone, I would expect if it broke, it would continue. No real volume. And I'm going to go ahead and just wrap everything up. Go into taking a look at some practice, some historical data, try to refine things a little bit more, take a look back over at the recordings and at some of the streams. See what kind of information I can gather. Definitely going to put a bit more focus in the Russell as the open. Tend to have a bit better luck with that one opening up. Throughout the day, I'll have to try to discern a few different things because as the day kind of trudges on, it tends to get worse in relation. So I'll have to figure out different ways to kind of cope and handle with this. But all in all, right now, some of the ideas started with are not working out so well, but I do think there might be some merit to taking these shorter targets. I think combining them with some sort of candle indication would probably be a good idea. More specifically, these full body candles or long wicks on one specific side. Just looking for 1 or 2 points typically. It's finally going to go there. Filled. So we'll see if we get this one. Probably go ahead and wrap it up. A lot of useful information to go through this weekend though. So next week things will be changed up slightly. And of course I'll probably go ahead and reset the account. Because at this point there isn't very much room to work with, and I should have something a little more concrete and defined as far as which way to go on entries. Probably put a little bit more focus into what's going on with targets as well. I think smaller is probably going to be the way to go because then that's a shorter time in the trade. It's much easier to predict the next 5 to 15 minutes versus trying to predict the next hour and a half, 2 hours, or even the entire day. The further out you try to predict, of course, the more time things can be allowed to shift against you or for you, but there's no way to know ahead of time what that's going to be. So we've got to eliminate as much of the issues as possible. It's more about trying to eliminate what you're doing wrong or what's going wrong in the process in order to come out with something in the end that's going to work out to be your benefit. So see how this trade plays out, and I'll do quite a bit of testing over the weekend and just see what kind of improvements I can make from everything that I've gone through over the last week and a half or so with holding this portion of it. Reset is $49. Haven't heard anything back about any kind of benefit or partnership yet with Top Step, but that is the current broker that I'm taking the prop firm challenge with. $49 is the that's for a $50,000 account, I do believe. $2,000 is the drawdown limit for the challenge, with $3,000 being the target. So a little bit of a 1.5 to 1 risk reward overall. Main thing first though is to get in. If you're not consistent but still want to trade live, the challenge is probably the best way to go. It's going to get extremely expensive if you're putting your own money in with the commission cost and then point values, because they're so much higher. You have to remember that this is pretty much extremely high leverage. Oftentimes you're leveraged about 40 to 50 to 1 on the future itself, and then whatever leverage you have buying into the prop firm will also compound your leverage. So maximum loss of $50 to take the challenge, $2,000 allowed in your drawdown. That gives lots of room to work with when you're practicing working things out and just overall trying to gain consistency, because consistency is predictability. So there's a lot of different good points to look over, and I'll try to make some sort of judgment out of that. Right now we've got a full body candle, so we'll try this theory on the live market. Moving rather slow, so it would be beneficial in terms of staying short, especially with the slower market on days where it's consolidating. You know, it's only moving 3 or 4 points and then changing direction, 3 or 4 points, change direction, 3 or 4 points. And starting to break down.
Order filled.
And getting some lag. So now we've got full body candle elimination. At least wind on hitting a target. Already some improvement just by applying some basic reasoning in the beginning. Still continuing to lose, but the rate is much slower. Just no volume in the market. It's probably end of the day slowdown. And there's a breakdown where that momentum's finally gave up. Could start to see it trending downward now, and line up more in line with ending in the middle of the range here for the end of the day and end of the week. So next week will be a new week, new day. Get some rest, get some practice and research. Come back next week with a little bit more defined strategy. Something a little bit more reliable. The main object is to try to find something that can generate a gain daily, not rely on weeks of waiting to conclude a trade, or even hardly take any trades at all. I know a lot of people like to wait on particular setups and then take only those setups. Oftentimes it could result in not getting any trades at all for certain days, and some people actually it's more common to prefer that method because it does tend to be a bit more profitable, more time to realize any type of gain. So I'm kind of looking on more of the shorter side of things. So we did get a win to finally wrap it up, but it did not make much of a difference in way of where we're going. Just going to do a reset. I'm about $40 off of the stop out balance, so just gonna reset $49 and try again. And we'll start with a fresh $50,000 account next week.
Order submit. Order filled.
What in the world? Yep, clearly no volume. I'm not.
Order filled.
That's not going to work in our favor. Time to call it a day. So I will catch you guys next week. If you want to see some of the process of analyzing everything and refinement, I can do a video about that, going through that process. But I know probably about Sunday evening I should come up and I'll have a sort of a more defined structure of how I'm going to be approaching taking trades next week. So we'll just regroup